Hey everyone, it's Natalie, also known as Knitty Natty. Summer is coming and it's time to get some projects planned. I'm going to share with you my summer project planning strategy today. So I have been doing some pretty strategic project planning over the last couple of months, and it is working out quite well. Most recently, I started trying this new thing I'm kind of calling like maintenance knitting, and I will explain it more in a second, but it's working out great. And by working out, I mean that I am finishing more projects and I am getting to every single one of my whips that I want to every single week. That doesn't mean that I don't have like random unfinished objects stored away, or I have times when I'm like totally unmotivated to work on something. This is just one of the strategies that I've been trying and sharing on the podcast, and I thought I would make one video just dedicated to project planning. So today my goal is to plan out my projects for the month of June. It's currently May 18th. So a little early, really, honestly, for me to plan projects for the next month. Usually I would probably wait until like a couple days before the month is going to begin, but I am just going to plan with the information that I have right now. I don't know exactly what I'm going to get finished up in May, though I do have a pretty good idea. And just always whenever I'm planning anything, and especially knitting and crochet, the plans are just a place to start, and I can change things at any time. There are no rules, there are no have-tos. Just because I'm writing something down is just to get it out of my brain and get it on paper. It doesn't mean that I have to stick to that. So you can use whatever works for you from this video, and don't feel like I'm saying this is the one and only way to plan projects, because I know that future Natalie down the line is going to change things. So I like to plan in a notebook. I have shown a couple of my planning things. Trying to flip to April's page. Where are you? May's page. So this is what my May project planning looks like so far, and I'm going to show something closer up here in a second, but I want to show you how I'm thinking about June. I'm also going to think a little bit about July, because I just want to kind of think about the summer months all together and some things that may be coming up as far as like make-alongs or commitments or other things. Anyway, we're going to get all into that. Let me get the camera set up so we can see a notebook, and let's do some planning together. However you want to write or type things out is totally fine. I know some people like to use their phone notes. I like to just write this out. So of course you need to grab your brightest, pinkest pen. Just kidding. You can grab whatever you want. So this is going to be June project plan. So I'm just going to write that at the top. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to write out is we're going to give ourselves 3 columns. These are different things that we are doing with our projects. So the first column is going to be current whips. The second one will be new cast ons. You can probably just write cast ons. And then the third column is going to be things we want to finish. This is all just within the month. So step number 1, let's start with our WIPs. WIPs is just an acronym, I think that's the right word, for works in progress. So I'm just going to write in my current works in progress. And usually I would do this again right before the beginning of the month. So I do have more WIPs than what I'm going to write down, but this is what I think I will have before I go into June. So I will have Unda, which is my brioche shawl, and then I will have my tessellation tee, which is a crocheted top. So these are 2 projects I'm currently working on that I will not finish by the end of May and are going to be going into June. I have 2 other projects that should be done, but we shall see. I can always add them later. If you have like just tons and tons of whips, maybe pick 2 to 3 to focus on for the month of June. Sometimes just deciding that you're going to focus on a few things and not worry about the others right now is super helpful in planning. Okay, now, step number 2. Let's talk about new cast-ons. So I am going to share with you a couple different things that I'm thinking about with new cast-ons, and we're gonna spend some time having fun with this part before we come back to do more planning on this page. New cast-ons is definitely the most fun part, but I find it kind of challenging because right now I'm really trying to think of things that will be something that I really want to work on, but I also have some other goals in mind. So a few areas to check when you are thinking about your new cast-ons. So one, I'm going to think about any upcoming make-alongs that I have. I'll write those down when we go back to the page, but if you have any make-alongs or any specific tests or commitments, think about those first. The other thing for me that I'm personally thinking about right now is my stash. So I just recently reorganized my stash all into here, and I have a goal of eliminating my stash this year. So when I'm planning new projects, I'm definitely keeping my stash in mind because I want to start using things that are in my stash. So some things that are catching my eye right now that I really want to use are these Fangirl fibers. This was like the 50th anniversary Disney thing, so I'm gonna pull those out. The other thing that I've been wanting to do is work on, I bought this in, what's it called? At India Untangled, and it's for a sweater. So I'm thinking like those are kind of fun, bright colors for summer. While it's not a summer top necessarily, it would be fun to work on in the summer. I've also got a great idea to use up my fade. This won't really count towards using stash, even though technically I am using yarn that I have. This is not a stash yarn right now because it's not a full skein. These are totally my own rules. And then the last thing is I have a friend that we recently bought this Miss Babs yarn and this, and we are planning to cast on this cowl together. So I know for sure that I'm going to be knitting this in the month of June. The other spot that I check here is my Ravelry queue. So this and stash for me kind of go together. I've been like keeping projects, I know this isn't the greatest, but I've been keeping projects in here for a while. Like this Alder Grove is the yarn, the coral yarn that I just pulled out. I was thinking about doing this shawl with that Disney yarn, but now I have new plans. Let me see if I can get this to scroll. This Inclinations cowl is what I'm planning to do with my friend. So check a few places, kind of think what's going on to help you plan your new projects. So now I just need to make some decisions on which projects are going to be for June. I've got 4 amazing choices here, and I'm probably going to pick 2 of them. Honestly, I've spent like the last hour debating what to do, and I just need to pick with the knowledge that I can always change it when the moment comes to actually cast things on. Because again, right now it's mid-May and I'm not going to be casting anything on for a couple of weeks, and I can always change my mind then. So I want to show you what I'm thinking. I've got 4 great options, and like I said, I think I'm going to pick 2 things. So one is for sure because I am making the Inclinations cowl with my friend Amy. We'll put a picture in here so you can see the Inclinations cowl is by Andrea Mowry, and I am going to be using this skein called Kite Surfing from Miss Babs that I just recently got at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, plus these 3. So for sure I'm going to be casting that on in the month of June, so I'm going to set that aside. Now, out of these things, I actually have this project that I know I can't cast on in June because the pattern is not out yet. So I was actually thinking about getting rid of all of these yarns. So this is my pink fade from Moonglow. And then I saw this pattern from my friend Brianna, and it's not out yet, so I'm actually wearing it in this photo. It's a dress, and I will make sure to link her just like general Ravelry pattern page because the dress is not going to be out for a while, but I think it will be so beautiful in this pink fade. But the pattern is coming out at the end of June, so I am going to keep this on reserve for my July project, and I can actually set this aside. So this one's a no. This one's a June. No, I guess this one's a July. This one's a June. Okay. I am excited to use this yarn, but I don't think I'm really
quite interested in making a sweater right now just because the weather is warming up. So I might actually save this for July too, but I'm planning to make the Alder Grove, and we'll put a picture in of this pattern. And this yarn I've had for a little while in stash, but I know for sure that I'm going to use it. So I think I'll set this one aside as well as maybe a July project, or maybe I won't even worry about doing it in July. Maybe it will be an August project, but I don't need to work on that right now. So that leaves these 3 yarns, and I am just dying to use them, and I have a couple of ideas. So the same designer that's doing the dress, I would love to make one of her other patterns. Either she's got joggers, she's got flares, but she has these shorts. They're called the Twisted Tea shorts. So I'll put a picture of the Twisted Tea shorts in there. I'm thinking about maybe using these 3 colors to make the Twisted Tea shorts. And I would maybe do, because these 2 colors are like, there's pink and the purple, so maybe using these helically and then using this one as like the waistband and the bottom bands on the legs. What would you do if you're using these 3 colors? I just really want to use these 3 colors. And I really want to make something of Brianna's, because I think it would just be super fun to do shorts for summer. And if I have enough left, I'm thinking about also making a matching top. I do have like a lot of yardage here, but I'm just not so sure how much I'll use on the shorts. So what would you do if you have these, if you were the person with these 3 colors, how would you do the Twisted Tea shorts? Because I think it's 2 skeins for the main part and 1 for the like cuff and waistband. So let me know what you would do, but I think I am decided on Twisted Tea shorts and Inclinations cowl as my cast-ons for June, saving the dress for July, and then saving this for later planning. Deciding on these new cast-ons is so tricky. So, okay, I'm just thinking about June in general. In June, I have 2 make-alongs going on. They are both through the Love and Stitches membership, and they started in May. So these are actually my make-along projects. So I don't need to worry about any other make-alongs for June, but I do kind of want to think about like what's coming up in July, just to kind of inform my decisions for June. So I know in July coming up is going to be Sock Week 2022. Very excited. There'll be the sponsors revealed next week on that. I don't think there's anything else coming up in July, except I want to make, I'll get the name of the pattern. I can't remember what it's called, but I want to make that dress by the Little Wolf Knits. And that's really it for now. So that kind of tells me I am free to do some fun new cast-ons in June. I don't need to stress about anything else. I guess if you're a designer and you want to put some designs here, that would be good too, just to kind of get things planned so you don't overcommit with new cast-ons, which is easy to do. So for sure, I want to cast on the Inclinations cowl. And then I also want to cast on the Twisted Tea shorts. And I'll have all those patterns linked. Okay. So now that we have figured out what we have currently on the needles, what we want to cast on, the last step of this first stage, step number 3, is to pick what we want to finish in the month. Now, this is just how my brain works. If your brain doesn't work this way, it's okay. You don't have to finish anything if you don't want to. Like, that's not a necessary thing to do. That's just kind of how I prefer to work on things, is like rolling things through month over month. So because my 2 whips are make-along projects, I definitely want to finish both of those. So I want to finish Unda by the end of the month. I want to finish my tessellation tee. And I also kind of want to finish both of my new cast-ons. When we get to the next part, we're going to see if that even like makes sense or is possible. So we're just going to write them all in for now. Again, this is just a framework. Things can change if we want them to. Okay, now that we have established all of these things, it's time to make a knitting plan. So now we're headed into our second stage, if you will, and this is the fourth step, which is our plan for how we're going to finish these things. And I apologize if you can hear any noise. We've got some cooking going on in the background. So I'm just gonna do a whole new section here on plans to finish that goes all the way across the page. So I'm going to divide up the month, and then I'm going to take the projects that I plan to finish and see how much knitting or crochet I have left on them and kind of divide that out. This is really just a rough estimate, and I will show you how this looked for the month of May because I think it will look or make a little more sense. But I'm just going to do my 2 current whips right now. And then again, I'll also show you how it looks in May because I think that makes a little more sense. So the projects that I want to finish are my unda, my tessellation tee. I'm just trying to like take up less space, my cowl, and my shorts. I'll come back and do these 2 later because I need to download the pattern and look at them. But I've just downloaded or taken a look at these 2 patterns, and I've been doing some math over here on this page, and we are going to get this figured out. So I need to first write out the weeks, and I have decided that June is actually going to start June is actually going to start on May 29th, and I'm going to give myself 5 weeks of June. So May 29th, then June 5th, then June 12th. These are all Sundays. You can decide, do you want to do Mondays, Sundays, Saturdays, whatever makes sense for you. There we go. I've got 5 weeks of June, and now I can do my plans. So for unda, the way that I figured this out is I calculated how many repeats that I have left to do in this shawl pattern. Now this is very tricky because the shawl does get bigger, so this is just kind of a rough estimate, but I took the total number of repeats that I need to do, which is 10 repeats. And actually, I don't even need my calculator for this one because if I divide up 10 by 5, that just means I need to do 2 repeats of the pattern per week. And sometimes I will like take the knitting or crochet that needs to be done and divide it up over the whole month. But sometimes I'll just say I'm going to focus on like one project for a few weeks and finish it, and then the next project for the following weeks and finish it. It just depends. Now for my tee, I did something a little bit different. I figured out how many inches of crochet that I have left to do. Then I also have the sleeves. So for this, I am going to use my calculator. So I have 2.5 inches left on the yoke. I'll have 13 inches for the body, and then 2 inches for each of the sleeves. Obviously, not all of these are going to take exactly the same amount of time because color work takes longer. The sleeves are smaller, but this is just a rough estimate. And you know what? Since it's really close to 20, let's just round it up to 20 and say I have 20 inches of knitting to do or crochet to do. Again, just divide it by 5, and that tells me how many inches I need to do per week. And then I can come back later and say, is this reasonable? Whatever. So that's kind of how I like to plan things out. I'll plan each and every one of these and then adjust as needed. So let's actually take a look at May because I think it makes so much more sense when I have, what I've actually been doing here. So here we go. Here are the May knitting plans. And we're almost ready to get to this last maintenance section. So here's where I wrote my whips and my finishes. And I did this a couple days into the month, so I didn't have any new cast ons because I had just cast them on. So you can see that I plan to finish 3 things. I've crossed one out because I've already finished it. And then here were my plans. So this one I did a little bit different because I was more into the patterns. I had inches and sleeves and finishing for my sweater. I had a hem and finishing for my shawl. And then I'm working on a sock. So I did like leg 1, foot 1, leg 1, foot 2, or whatever. I messed that up. But you can see that I've been going back to it weekly and checking things off. I am ahead here on this sweater. I'm actually just about to finish it. I just have to do some sewing and weaving in ends. So I'm hoping to have this finished early. We're actually in this week here, which is exciting. But that's kind of how the things have been looking for this. So we're ready to move into our final stage, which is something that I feel like is so different that I've been doing lately that has been working out super well, and that is maintenance knitting. Maintenance knitting is this new thing that I have been trying out in the month of May, and it is going so well, so I'm so excited to share about it. It's really simple, and it's working really well for me. Again, if this is not something that you feel like works for you, it's fine. You don't have to do it this way. If you want to give it a try, tweak it, do whatever you want. I'm just sharing things that I'm trying and how they're going. So here's what maintenance knitting is. Basically, I'm looking at my knitting and crochet on a daily basis and thinking about the times that I often will sit down to knit. And in each of those times, I'm kind of assigning a project to that time, or maybe assigning 2 projects that I alternate between depending on the day. And what that does for me is it just makes me go, okay, you know what? It's my morning knitting time. This is when I work on my simple project. This is when I read and knit. So I want to pick something that has stockinette or whatever. Or this is my, post dinner nighttime knitting. I want to pick a project that challenges my brain, or maybe I don't. Maybe I want to pick a simple project that I can watch TV with. Anyway, it just is a way to kind of think about the day and think about your knitting projects as assigned to time blocks or times that make sense and fit that type of knitting or crochet that you're doing. And what it does is it just allows, at least for me, to actually work on all of my whips every single week. I used to think I needed to work on all my projects every single day, but now I'm more just thinking about it like I want to at least touch and work on each of them every single week. This has been working out super, super well for me. So I want to show you how I was doing it this month, and then we'll go back to the June plans and think about how to make that work for June. Time for our last section down here and our final step, which is planning our maintenance knitting. So we have a plan. I'm just gonna write out maintenance knitting / crochet. Whenever I say knitting, I mean like all inclusive, but I know if I was only a crocheter, I would hate that. So I mean knitting and crochet. But we have a plan up here for just weekly goals, but like when are we actually gonna work on these projects? And I have just found, I spelled maintenance wrong. I don't wanna fix it. Goofy, okay, we're fine. I find that planning this out is so nice because it gives me an opportunity to not have to think like, okay, it's lunchtime. This is the project that I work on during lunch. Now, if I don't want to work on that project during the designated time, I simply switch. But it does kind of take the thinking out of things and just make it more routine, which for me is really nice. So take a moment and think about the times that you often grab your projects on a daily basis. Most of us have at least one time that's semi-regular throughout the day. So maybe it's nap time when your kids go down for a nap. Maybe it's morning time. Maybe it's TV time at night. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of think about things that you typically will do. So for me, I'm thinking chronologically from the start of the day. So I always spend 30 minutes knitting in the morning. So my first block is 30 minutes of knitting. So I can pick a project that I will most often work on during this time. Let me get you zoomed in here if I can. Yes, there we go. That's better. My second block of the day is my lunchtime knitting. I usually get an hour Monday through Friday to do lunchtime knitting. Also, when I think about this, I'm thinking about weekdays because they're more consistent. My weekends, usually I can work on a project for a longer stretch of time. The next time in my day is usually that like post dinner, evening knitting. So I'm just going to call this one evening. And then the last category is not really something that happens on a daily basis, but I do like to have a project for out and about. So this may be going, can't write and say stuff at the same time, But this may be like when I'm traveling on the subway, when I am waiting for an appointment, when I am going to dinner or at a bar, and I just want something to work on when I'm going to the movies. So each of these projects lends itself to, or each of these times lends itself to a different type of project. So I usually read here, so I'm going to need something simple and small to go out and about. And then these 2 times, I can really have more complicated projects. Okay, so looking at the 4 projects that I want to work on in the month of June, I am thinking that my twisted tee shorts are probably going to be my simplest project. So they're going to be a really good project to do for my 30 minutes in the morning. So I think I'll put those there. Perfect. And then my next simplest project is probably going to be my tessellation tee once I get it through the color work, which I hope I finish the color work before June, but I'm not 100% sure. So I think I might put my tessellation tee as my lunchtime knitting. For my out and about knitting, that is going to be trickier. I am not sure what to put there right now. I may also just say the twisted tee shorts is what it's supposed to say. I may just put the twisted tee shorts for now and see what comes up. It may just be a rotation of whichever project is the simplest. And then for my evening knitting, I've got 2 projects remaining, and I've been doing this for the month of May, and it's been working out great. I've taken my 2 most complicated projects, and I have alternated working on them in the evening. So I'm left with Unda, which is a brioche project, not good for out and about, and the inclination shawl or cowl, which I think is an easier project, but will have multiple skeins of yarn. So it may be good to have in the evening. So I'm just going to do a slash. And again, if I get to this time period, I'm like, nah, I want to do something else, I can totally switch it. Real quickly, I do want to show you how that looked for May, just because it's still May right now, so May is making more sense in my mind. But here's how it works. 30 minutes of knitting right now is my Something Cozy sweater. It's a simple stockinette sweater. My lunchtime knitting was my outstranding shawl, but I decided that once I finished that, it would become my Something Cozy. So for the past few weeks, I've been working on Something Cozy, my sweater, in the morning and during lunch, and sometimes other times too. At night, I've been alternating my crochet top, my tessellation tee, and my Unda because they're more complicated. This has been working out super great, and I usually work on those 2 a bunch in the evening as well. My out and about has been my socks. I'm making a really simple pair of socks. So things are about to change here. I need my other color. So very soon, maybe in the next day or so, I will be able to, I'm not going to actually write on it because it's so satisfying to check it off when it's actually happening. But I will be finishing my Something Cozy, crossing it out. Yes. And then down here, I get to change a couple things. Once I finish my Something Cozy, I will then be able to put something else in the lunchtime in 30 minutes of knitting. So I think what I might do is add my socks as my 30 minutes of knitting in the morning. It's simple, stockinette. I want to finish the socks in the month of May. And then I might do something else, take one of these and switch it over to lunchtime knitting. So then I'll have something for the evening, something at lunchtime, and I can start working through those 2 projects a little bit more at the end of May because those are 2 projects I want to finish in June. So that's how my planning is going and how I'm thinking about knitting and crocheting this month. Again, you don't have to do this if it's not going to work for you. Don't stress, but I do find it just really helpful to have somewhat of a plan in place, and then you can do little tweaks from there.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found at least one thing that is helpful and that you can take and use to organize your projects. If you're a planner, let me know down below. Tell me some of your tips and things that you have been trying that have been working for you. Let me know if any of these tips are helpful. And if you are somebody who just likes to go with the flow with your projects, I think that there's space in this sort of a thing too, where you can kind of plan stuff, but you don't always have to stick with it. For me, I'm just finding that I like having stuff planned so much more, and that even when it's planned, I have a better time like pivoting and changing things than when things are left unplanned. Good luck planning your summer knits and crochet projects. Can't wait to see what you're working on, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.